Welcome to Live, Laugh, Talk. I'm your host, James Graham, and it's a joy and a privilege to be in your ear. In this episode, we will begin with the topic entitled, Can You Romantically Love Two People? Then we will transition to our segment, How Did We Get Here? Followed by our Hobbies and Special Interest section, and then conclude with our sunflower message. If you have something on your mind, an idea maybe you'd like for the show, please let us know at admin@livelaughtalk.com. If listening on Spotify, you can add a voice memo as well as comments, and you can also participate in our poll. Also, wherever it is that you listen to the podcast, please follow us so that you're notified of the new episodes when they're released. The topic that we will begin with is entitled, Can You Romantically Love Two People? A question that has come up in many people's minds, and a quite popular question today, is if it's possible to romantically love two people simultaneously. And what we're talking about, we're not talking about loving someone like family. No, what we're talking about is romantic. Now, of course, there are experts out there that feel that this can be done. That it is one thing that is completely possible. I don't know about that. When I think about it, I think about the many complications that could come out of it. Now, I'm not judging anybody, and I'm not sitting here saying, this just can't happen. Well, there is evidence. There are people out there who have had such relationships, and they have been long-standing. And I think back scripturally, I've always thought about how in the world did Solomon have 1,000 wives and concubines? 1,000 wives and concubines. And we'll revisit this later because there are things we're going to talk about that has to occur in a relationship like that, where there's two or more people. So we're going to revisit Solomon and what possibly happened and what could be happening today with people who have relationships as such. The phenomenon that we're speaking of is referred to as polyamory or ethical non-monogamy, where individuals have consensual and open romantic or sexual relationships with multiple partners. In a polyamorous relationship, there are things that have to take place. And even the experts say this. There has to be clear communication. There has to be consent. Also, ethical behavior is essential. And it's important to have open and honest discussions with all parties involved to ensure that everyone's feelings and boundaries are respected. So while the experts say it's possible to romantically love two or more people, managing these relationships can be complex and may require careful navigation to ensure the well-being and happiness of everyone that's involved. Some insights that we might want to take into romantic relationships begin with the fact that there has to be time and attention given. That brings us back to Solomon. Now, if you're going to balance time and attention among multiple romantic partners, this can be challenging. Imagine if you had 1,000 partners. How do you even get around to seeing 1,000 people? And let's just say you romantically had a sexually active relationship with all of these people. I mean, it's only 365 days in a year. So it's possible that Solomon never got around to one individual in a year, 2 or 3. That has to make some awful feelings come about. But we're going to bring it back to today. Nobody's having 1,000 people with them, well, hopefully. So if we look at today and we look at 2 or more, there has to be attention given. There has to be communication. And you have to prioritize effectively to meet the emotional needs of everyone involved. That means when you say the word prioritize, can you prioritize two or more people? Can you make each one of them feel special? And in doing that, what about the jealousy and insecurity that could come about? Yes, these emotions can still arise in polyamorous relationships. So it's crucial to address and manage these feelings constructively through open communication and self awareness. As I was managing my business, I met an individual who was in a polyamorous relationship. I met both women in this relationship as well. All seemed very happy. At the time, it was a head scratcher for me. I got to know these individuals for now over 5 years. One has had a baby, the other, she enjoys the life of being with the three of them together and now their child. No one has any jealousy. No one is upset with the other. Everybody is happy. So the question remains, is it possible? Well, sure. But the thing that we have to ask ourselves is if any and everybody can do it. Because when you're in such a relationship, each romantic relationship, each partner, it may offer something different in terms of compatibility or shared interests or an emotional connection. This can contribute to the ability to romantically love multiple people, sure. But I'm thinking too, and you may be thinking, if you start having an emotional connection and you're compatible, maybe even more with one than the other, wouldn't that bring about some jealousy? Is it possible to have insecurity? The level of commitment and expectations in polyamorous relationships can vary widely. Some may involve long term commitment, while others may be more casual. Clear agreements and expectations are vital. As with any romantic relationship, ethical behavior is essential, that we mentioned at the onset. There must be honesty, there has to be respect, and consent are fundamental principles to maintain this polyamorous relationship. It's important to note that while it's completely possible to romantically love multiple people, not everyone is going to be comfortable with or interested in such a relationship. Yes, the key is to have open and consensual relationships that align with the preferences and values of all individuals involved. What works for one person or group may not work for another, so communication and mutual understanding are essential to ensure the well being and happiness of everyone in the relationship. Love is a complex and nuanced emotion, and people can experience different forms and degrees of love for multiple individuals simultaneously. However, the nature of these feelings and how they are managed can vary greatly from person to person, and it can be challenging to navigate. So it's important to consider the feelings and needs of all parties involved when dealing with such situations. Communication, honesty, as we mentioned, and understanding are crucial in managing complex emotional relationships, even when it's two people. But when it comes to loving three or more, when you've got a polyamorous one, it's important to recognize that love can take various forms and intensities. Some people can experience deep romantic love for one person while also having strong platonic or familial love for another. But when that's a romantic relationship, in these cases, there has to be transparency, discussion, and everybody has to navigate this situation in such a way that nobody feels that it's familial. Everybody has to feel that this is a romantic relationship for each and every one, and that everyone is getting the time and attention that they need. So ultimately, the ability to love multiple people depends on the individual and their unique circumstances. What's crucial is maintaining healthy and respectful boundaries. And as we mentioned, ensuring that all parties involved are comfortable with the arrangement and remain comfortable. Because maybe they're comfortable at first, but there could be something that comes about that changes everything. So we have to make sure that these deep feelings continue and they're managed and they're expressed widely and continuously. Another thing that one has to do, and this happened in the relationship that I mentioned earlier, where the individuals that I met, I've known now for over 5 years, actually asked the male in this relationship, why? Why do you love multiple people? What I was asking was if you've had self reflection. Did you take the time to understand your own feelings and your own motivations? Well, he was able to answer that. He told me how he felt about each individual. He actually told me that he met the one lady first, the one that does not have a child, and they together chose the next individual who now has a child, which she shares among the other two in the relationship. So, what this relationship meant to him was something special. He was very self aware. He could explain it, he could actually navigate and tell me the complex emotions that were involved in my mind. And I had to remember that the dynamics of loving multiple people could be possible because there it was. It could also be intricate. And there's no one size fits all answer. What works for one group may not work for another. Ultimately, it's about finding a balance and an arrangement that respects the feelings and well being of everyone involved, as we've mentioned earlier. So, some factors to consider that we've talked about, there's got to be communication constantly, there's got to be consent. No one should feel coerced or pressured, and that must be continuous. Continuous making sure that people are active and happy in the relationship. There must be clear expectations and roles to help prevent misunderstandings and conflicts. Each spouse should have a good understanding of their position within the relationship. And of course, you're going to have to navigate through the jealousy and insecurity that could arise. We mentioned that earlier. And then in some regions, there are legal considerations there. And even if you're not married to multiple people because you may not live in a state that allows that, there are places that will allow. But also, you want to consider the fact that even if you made this a relationship in which there were no, as we could say, paperwork, but you still have issues that come about of who owns what is left to who, all these types of factors. Because the law may not recognize that there are two women involved or however the relationship is set up. And then you've got the cultural and the religious factors. Because in some cultures and religions, polygamous relationships are not even thought about, much less accepted, and far from being encouraged. It's important to note that they're challenging and it might not work for everybody. Yet, there are these relationships that are there and they're built on trust and they're built on feelings that are respected. And each person feels like they're a priority. We must remember, too, that as mentioned earlier, we want to make sure that there's financial and emotional support for all parties. If children come into this, the dynamics become even more intricate. There must be decisions regarding parenting, discipline, and responsibilities must be carefully negotiated. Yet individuals have to understand that in the community, there may be a social stigma. There may be judgment or discrimination. There may be individuals that just think that this is not right. So you may have a hard time finding support in your community, and it's good to know that up front. Also, are there exit strategies? Yes, preparing for the possibility of the relationship ending is important. There should be clear agreements on how to dissolve the relationship, divide assets, handle custody arrangements if applicable. All of this should be in place. And what about personal growth and fulfillment? Yes, individuals in polygamous relationships should consider rather their personal growth and individual fulfillment are being met within the structure of the relationship. Sometimes personal goals and aspirations could be compromised just for the well being of the others. Regular check ins on the emotional and physical health of each individual is important. Want to make sure that every party feels important and that their mental well being is considered. In summary, a polygamous relationship can fulfill all parties involved. And James is not going to sit here and say, well, it should happen or it shouldn't happen. That's not what this show is about. This show is about the fact that it is happening and the question is out there. And there are people that actually wish to be a part of such a relationship. So, in doing, let's consider everything carefully. Let's communicate clearly. And a commitment to addressing the unique challenges that come forth must be talked about. And what's most important is that all individuals in the relationship are content. Everyone should have the opportunity to thrive within their chosen structure, and each and every person must be respected. If you think that this is a relationship that works for you, well, make sure that these things happen. Each polygamous relationship is unique, and its success will depend on the people involved and their ability to navigate these complexities. So, as I mentioned, I know of a couple that I've known for 5 years, but they were together longer than that, and it works for them. There are relationships, when I stop and think about it, that just involve two people. We can look at the statistics, and marriages are just not surviving. So, whether it's two people, three people, four people, everybody has to be happy. Everybody has to be content. And most importantly, everybody has to have the ability to thrive and have success in that relationship. So, we're going to think about it this way. If this is for you, if this is something that you're seeking or something that has come about in your life and now you're thinking about it, consider all the things that we talked about. But most importantly, make sure that in this relationship or any other, that you're going to come out feeling prioritized. The U.S. continues to report the world's highest criminal incarceration rates, with nearly 2 million people held in state and federal jails and prisons on any given day, and millions more on parole and probation. Despite some reductions in incarceration rates for Black people, they remain vastly overrepresented in jails and prisons. Following a trend starting in 2009, prison populations have decreased steadily without substantially dismantling the mass incarceration system. Prisons have often failed to provide sufficient protections against diseases such as COVID-19, One third of all people in U.S. prisons have contracted the virus, and over 2,700 have died from it. Many jurisdictions reduced incarceration in response to the pandemic, but detained populations began returning to their pre pandemic numbers, even as the Delta variant cases surged. Despite widespread calls for systemic reform during the summer of 2020, especially to reduce over reliance on policing and address societal problems with investment in supportive services, few jurisdictions have enacted meaningful measures. Some localities have made efforts to deploy mental health care professionals instead of police in appropriate circumstances. Some have funded non law enforcement violence interrupters. However, police budgets overall have not shrunk. Congress has not passed even the weak reforms proposed in the Federal Justice in Policing Act. Most U.S. police departments refuse to even report data on their use of force or necessitating non governmental data collection and analysis. Police have not been the entire issue with the U.S. criminal justice system, but there's a part. They have a part. But there are several criticisms and challenges overall, starting with mass incarceration. We talked about the United States having the highest incarceration rates in the world, leading to overcrowded prisons and concerns about the effectiveness of rehabilitation, because that's the purpose. It's rehabilitation. We talked earlier, just a second ago, about the racial disparities. There are significant racial disparities in arrests, sentencing, and incarceration rates, with Black and Hispanic individuals disproportionately affected. Mandatory minimum sentences are those in which some argue that contribute to harsh and disproportionate punishments for nonviolent offenses. We've discussed the need for there to be police issues cared for, such as racial profiling, brutality, the use of force when there is none needed. All of these things have called for there to be police reform or mandatory training. The cash bail system can result in pretrial detention for those unable to afford bail, leading to disparities in justice as well. And when it comes to our juveniles, challenges exist in the treatment of these juvenile offenders, while some argue that there should be more rehabilitative approaches. What about legal representation? Well, many individuals, especially those with lower incomes, may not have access to quality legal representation, which impacts their ability to navigate the legal system. High rates of recidivism suggest that the system may not effectively rehabilitate offenders. And that's a crime within itself. Because, as mentioned, that is what our judicial system is supposed to be all about. That's what jail is about. It's about rehabilitating people, not putting people in a cage. Some believe that there are too many laws and regulations out there, leading to potential criminalization of minor infractions, in which some of these infractions become okay in some states, not in others. There are also those in which the laws have changed. So people were in prison, let's just say for marijuana use or the sale of marijuana, and then it became legal in that state. Then what do you do with those who are incarcerated because they did what was a crime at the time? And of course, there has been a continuous debate over the death penalty and concerns about wrongful convictions and ethical considerations. Yes, within the United States, all of these issues just beg for a reform of the criminal justice system overall. Because disparities in sentencing can be influenced by factors like geographic location, socioeconomic status, the discretion of judges, leading to unequal outcomes. Then, when we look at drug policies, the war on drugs has been criticized for contributing to long sentences for nonviolent drug offenders and disproportionately affecting minority communities. The involvement of private companies in running prisons has raised concerns about profit incentives, conflicting with the goal that we've talked about of rehabilitation. And the very fact that there's a lack of rehabilitation makes critics argue that the focus on punishment over rehabilitation can hinder an individual's chances of successfully reintegrating into society. Convictions can result in collateral consequences, such as loss of voting rights, difficulty finding employment, and housing discrimination. There's also the call for better training, de escalation techniques by our police, and increased police accountability have arisen to address issues of excessive use of force. And what about mental health in this country? The criminal justice system often deals with individuals with mental health issues just like they're everybody else. And it's not necessarily true. There's a need for improved mental health services and diversion programs. There's also advocates for a shift towards restorative justice practices that prioritize repairing harm and reconciling offenders with victims. Concerns about the lack of transparency in the system, including police records and prosecutorial decisions, have led to calls for greater openness. So, what is our public perception here in the United States? Hmm, trust in the criminal justice system can be said to have simply been eroded. People perceive it as unfair. People perceive it as bias, which can hinder cooperation with law enforcement. And why do people feel this way? Well, we see what's going on. Prisons are overpopulated. Since 1970, our incarcerated population has increased by 700%. Since 1991, the rate of violent crime in the United States has fallen by about 20%, while the number of people in prison or jail has risen by 50%. If African Americans and Hispanics were incarcerated at the same rates as whites, prison and jail populations would decline almost 40%. And then we got to look at taxpayer dollars. $80 billion are spent on our current prison system, accounting for 1 out of every 15 state general fund discretionary dollars. Second fastest growing category for state budgets. Well, what about aid for those in poverty? What about housing for individuals? What about our schools? All of this suffers while we put $80 billion in our prison system. Reforming the U.S. criminal justice system is a complex and ongoing process that's going to involve a lot. It's going to involve legal changes, policy initiatives, community engagement, and public awareness. Many organizations and advocates are working toward a more equitable and effective system. Yet we are left with the burning question: how did we get here? Our hobby, our special interest, is crossword puzzles. Yes, they can be a rewarding and intellectually stimulating hobby. They challenge your vocabulary, problem solving skills, and general knowledge. But if you're going to get into the hobby, I suggest to start with easy puzzles. If you're new to crossword puzzles, Begin with the easier ones to get the hang of the format and common clues. Invest in a good crossword dictionary or use online resources to look up words, synonyms, and crossword specific clues. Pay attention to the number of letters required for each answer. This can help you narrow down possible words. Then fill in the blanks. Start with any answers you're unsure of, especially longer ones. They can provide clues for intersecting words. Crossword clues often involve wordplay like anagrams, puns, or hidden words. Be open to creative interpretations. And familiarize yourself with common crossword clues and abbreviations, such as river for R or mountain for MT. Clues might use synonyms to lead you to the answer. Expand your vocabulary to improve your solving skills. And this can help you in the run as you're gaining more knowledge and more use of your dictionary, expanding your brain. Don't get discouraged if you can't solve a puzzle right away. Sometimes setting it aside and returning later can help. Many crosswords have themes where certain answers relate to a central idea. Identify the theme to solve related clues more easily. And like any hobby, practice makes perfect. The more puzzles you solve, well, the better you'll become. There are many crossword apps and websites out there too that offer daily puzzles. You don't have to look for a newspaper anymore. These are also a great way to practice and improve your skills. And with any other hobby, we ask that you join a community. There are crossword puzzle communities out there. There are forums that discuss clues, tips, and you can also share your passion with others. Yes, our hobbies should bring us closer to our community. Remember, crossword puzzles are meant to be enjoyable, just like all of our hobbies. So let's have fun while challenging our minds. Our sunflower message are words of affirmation from me to you, the listener. You are loved more than you can fathom. You are chosen. You are wanted. Thank you for being a friend to me. And each time I end this discussion, trust me, I miss you. You are important. You are valuable. You're not alone, even when you're in your loneliest hour. Remember that you are cared for. This brings us to the conclusion of our podcast, but it's definitely not the conclusion of our sunflower message. We want you to know that you are appreciated, and those words of affirmation are meant for you. On Cash App at $Live Laugh Talk, at Live Laugh Talker on Twitter, and on Spotify, there's a $sign to donate to support the podcast. If you donate any dollar, it is used for the podcast and for its continuation. Also, remember to rate us the highest on your podcast platform and tell your friends and family and colleagues about us. Also, a few more housekeeping notes. Check us out on social media. We're Live Laugh Talk on every platform. Live Laugh Talker on Twitter. Twitter only. Is it different? Live Laugh Talker. The rest is Live Laugh Talk. And share our stories, our reels with others. We're also on TikTok, and I know a lot of people like to share those videos. So go on there, share them. Make sure that you tell other people about the podcast, because that's the only way we can grow. Also, there's the beautiful swag on Etsy. Just search for How Did We Get Here? And you'll see the coffee mugs, also the shirts, beautiful tote bags, and we've got more coming. We're going to have hats, other items, polo shirts, things like that. It's coming. Make sure that you're ready to get yours. This is James and Georgia's baby boy signing off. And as you know, I can't wait to talk with you again soon.